Our story begins in the serene valley of Ondoria, a vibrant land sustained by the river of life. For generations, this river has been the heartbeat of the valley, providing clear waters for fishing, fertile soil for crops, and sustenance for the villagers whose lives are intricately woven into its flow. Deep within a sacred hidden cave at the river's source lies the Heartstone, a glowing, pulsating gem that is the very wellspring of the river's magic and purity. For countless years, the Guardian has stood sentinel over the Heartstone. Trained since childhood, every fiber of his being is dedicated to its protection. He has never made a single mistake. But one fateful day, as the Guardian performed his ancient rituals within the cave, a tremor, unlike any he had ever felt, shook the very foundations of the earth. Cracks snaked across the cavern walls, dust rained down, and the air filled with the terrifying roar of collapsing rock. The sacred cave began to fall apart around him. With a desperate lunge, the Guardian managed to save himself. He watched, helpless, as the Heartstone was utterly crushed beneath the collapsing debris. Its vibrant glow flickered, then vanished, leaving only silence and darkness. In the valley, the immediate aftermath was horrifying. The mighty river of life, moments before a vibrant artery, began to recede, shrink, and finally cease flowing entirely. Its bed cracked, its banks dried, and the once lush landscape began to wither. Panic seized the villagers. The villagers gathered, their faces etched with fear and desperation. Children cried, farmers stared at their parched fields, and the elders spoke of starvation and exodus. The Guardian appeared before them. "The Heartstone is lost," he announced, his voice heavy with sorrow. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "But remember this," he continued, "everything happens for a reason. Perhaps it is bad, perhaps it is good. Time will tell." A wave of anger erupted. "Good!" someone shouted. "What good can come from dying of thirst and hunger?" Their frustration was raw, their faith in him shaken. Ignoring their fury, the Guardian, driven by an ancient intuition he couldn't explain, set out alone, searching for answers. He journeyed to the Forbidden Peak, a place of shadowed magic. There, he discovered a horrifying truth. The notorious shadow sorcerer had laid a devastating blight spell upon the very waters of the river of life. Not at its source, but downstream, hidden in the currents. The Guardian learned that if the river had continued to flow, its waters would have slowly, imperceptibly poisoned every living thing in the valley. A silent, agonizing death for every plant, animal, and villager. The slow, certain demise would have been far worse than any immediate drought. Rushing back, he delivered the grim news to his still suffering people. The river's flow was cursed, he explained. Had it continued, every drop would have brought a slow, agonizing death. A profound silence fell, then a murmur of stunned realization. "We were lucky," a villager whispered, the word tasting bitter but true. "The river stopping, it saved us from that fate." But the relief was short-lived. "But now," another added, "we will still die, from hunger, from thirst." The very next morning the sky opened up. A torrential storm, unlike any seen in generations, descended upon the valley of Ondoria. It was a rain that defied the seasons, a powerful deluge that replenished the parched earth and filled the natural ponds that had been fed by the river before its demise. A glimmer of hope returned. "We are saved," they cried, laughing and dancing in the downpour. And then the storm intensified. What began as a blessing swelled into a monstrous force. The rain became a furious, relentless downpour. The parched riverbed, once dry, now churned with raging torrents, the water rising at an alarming rate. Their young crops were violently washed away, their fields turned into muddy, impassable swamps. Houses, built to withstand only gentle flows, began to creak, groan, and then, one by one, were torn from their foundations and swept away by the furious current. Their precious food stores, kept in low-lying cellars, were inundated and ruined. Fear, cold and absolute, gripped the villagers once more. This was not a blessing, it was an apocalypse. "This is the end," they wailed, huddling together against the relentless wind and rain. Yet again, amid the chaos, the Guardian's voice, though strained, cut through the din. "Everything happens for a reason. Perhaps it is good, perhaps it is bad. Time will tell." The storm raged all night, a symphony of destruction. When the villagers emerged trembling into the dawn, the scene was devastating. Their valley was a wreck, fields ravaged, homes crumbled, their meager food supplies gone. But then, a single impossible light caught their eyes. From the very spot where the Heartstone cave had collapsed, a brilliant, pulsating glow rose from the mud and debris. They rushed towards it. The colossal storm, in its furious power, had not just destroyed, it had washed away all the rubble and earth that had entombed the Heartstone. There it was, exposed, shimmering brighter than ever before. Its power not lost, but merely dormant, now fully reactivated by the force of the storm's waters. As the Heartstone pulsed with renewed vigor, the river of life began to swell and flow anew, its waters crystal clear, teeming with fish once more. Life, against all odds, surged back into the valley. In that moment, the true, profound meaning of the Guardian's words resonated in every heart. What they had perceived as the worst calamity, the Heartstone's collapse, the river's drying, the devastating storm, had been the only way. The initial collapse had protected them from the Shadow Sorcerer's slow, agonizing poison. The drying of the river had forced them to endure a temporary hardship that, in hindsight, saved their lives. And the destructive storm, far from being just an act of nature's wrath, was the very force needed to cleanse the blight from the river's path and to unearth and reactivate the Heartstone, revealing it pure and stronger than before. What they lost in crops and homes was devastating, but infinitely less than what would have been lost if the water had not stopped, or if the storm had not washed clean the path for the Heartstone's rebirth. The valley, though scarred, was alive. Sometimes life will throw you a curveball that feels like the end of everything. A lost job, a broken relationship, a sudden illness, a plan that completely falls apart. In those moments, it's natural to feel despair, anger, and confusion. You might even ask, why me? What good could possibly come from this? But just like the Heartstone was protected by its temporary destruction, and the valley was saved by the very storm that seemed to ruin it, your biggest setbacks can often be your biggest setups. That failure might force you to pivot to a career you're truly passionate about. That broken relationship might open the door to a healthier connection. That period of struggle might reveal an inner strength you never knew you had, or lead you to a solution you never would have found on your original path. It doesn't mean you won't feel the pain, or that every bad thing is a gift wrapped up nicely. Life is hard, but it does encourage you to look for the unseen connections, the unexpected doors, and the lessons that only emerge when your usual path is blocked. When things fall apart, try to remember the Heartstone. It might just be making way for something even stronger, clearer, or more vital to emerge. Trust that sometimes the end of one thing is simply the necessary beginning of another, better chapter.